just when we started to praise the Minnesota Twins offense, they go ahead and give a performance like that. We'll talk about it here on the Twinkie Town Tavern. Welcome to the Twinkie Town Tavern, where the beer is always cold, the Twins talk is always hot, and the stools are always open. I'm your host, Josh Kolojeski, inviting you to grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's talk about the Twins dropping their series opener against the Los Angeles Dodgers 2-1 on Monday. Here's how it happened. Welcome to Target Field, Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is now exiting Target Field. With a leadoff solo shot off poor Zebby Matthews on the second pitch of the game, he gives the Dodgers an early 1-0 lead. However, Byron Buxton matches him in the next half inning against the Dodgers opener. It's his 25th of the year, and it ties the game at 1. Zebby Matthews gets into trouble in both the second and fourth innings, but gets out of it nicely each time. In between, he tosses a pair of 1-2-3 innings against one of the best lineups in Major League Baseball. Meanwhile, the Twins are inexplicably feckless against one of the worst pitchers in the league in Eric Lauer. No hits in his 6-inning bulk outing. Zebby makes one mistake to Freddie Freeman to lead off the 6th, and Freeman puts it over the center field fence. Dodgers go up 2-1. They work around a leadoff man getting on in the 8th inning before setting the Twins down in order with Tanner Scott in the 9th. Los Angeles holds on for a 2-1 win. The Twins fall to 38-42. They remain in third place in the AL Central, and they're 3.5 games behind first place Chicago, and now 2 games back of Toronto for the final AL wildcard spot. Let's get into it. Thanks for joining us here on the Twinkie Town Tavern this evening. We are a part of the Grey Duck Sports Network. Go ahead and give us a follow over on Twitter and YouTube at Grey Duck Sports in both of those places. And then on TikTok, we are at grey.duck.sports. There you can find clips from our show as well as our ongoing series on the 2002 Minnesota Twins, the team who saved baseball in Minnesota, as well as some general musings about the NFL, the MLB, the Twins, the Vikings, anything else your heart desires that is on our Grey Duck Sports social media followings. So give us a like and subscribe wherever you are active. It'll certainly go a long way. Going a long way? Well, that's what happened on the second pitch of the game. Zebby Matthews leaves one up to Shohei Ohtani, and Ohtani sets the tone for the rest of this game, hopefully not the rest of the series, but he puts it well over the fence, and the Dodgers, with a no-doubter, go up 1-0. The Dodgers never trailed in this game, but Minnesota played Los Angeles pretty closely throughout, and for me, I think the Twins wasted an opportunity to steal a win against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, I came into this series kind of expecting Minnesota to probably get swept. I know we won 1 of 3 against the Dodgers last year. This is obviously a different Twins team, a better Dodgers team, because their starting pitchers are not as injured. Their bullpen is not performing as inexplicably poorly as it did last year. So I wasn't expecting much, but there was some optimism that the Twins could take at least one, and we don't want to get too crazy or too greedy, but maybe win the series and put themselves in a good place before taking on the cellar dwellers of the Colorado Rockies, the cellar dwellers of the last half decade in Major League Baseball, the Colorado Rockies, which is a series that comes up later on this week, actually over this weekend. So it was very frustrating to see Minnesota come in and to see Zebby Matthews especially set the Dodgers down, contain a lineup that has won back-to-back World Series. A lineup that features at least 3 Hall of Famers, with Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and probably Mookie Betts, albeit Betts not having his best season. He's on the downtrend of his career, but still a Hall of Famer nonetheless. And that in between that is sprinkled in with Andy Pages, who is an excellent hitter. Kyle Tucker, who left this game with an injury, but was still able to get a couple of at-bats against Zebby Matthews. No Will Smith, but Max Muncy. Also, Zebby Matthews did as well as I think we would expect from Zebby Matthews against that sort of lineup. Only giving up the 2 runs, only really giving up the 2 mistakes, and by golly, the Twins could not solve, of all people, Eric Lauer. And that, I think, is what frustrates me the most from this loss, is that for whatever reason, they could not solve the pitcher who, by any metric, whether you go by the Fangraphs Stuff Plus or MLB Pitch Profiler's Stuff Plus rating, it is far and away the lowest among qualified starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. It is lower than Bailey Ober, who we all know has some good location at times, good command, but his stuff is nothing to write home about. Eric Lauer has worse stuff than that, has worse command and location than that, and yet the Minnesota Twins were not able to get a hit off of him. The Twins played against Eric Lauer earlier this season, and I forgot about this, but Derek Shelton mentioned it in his post-game press conference. April 11th, 2026. At this time, Eric Lauer was a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. The Twins, against him, Lauer goes 5 1/3 innings of work. He gives up 5 hits, 7 runs, all of them earned, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, and 2 home runs. Larnach had one of them, and Brooks Lee had the other. Today, for whatever reason, 6 innings pitched, 0 hits, 0 runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. And I get that that is just a part of baseball sometimes. You can go up against a bad pitcher who has been good since coming over to the Los Angeles Dodgers. His overall surface level numbers have been a lot better than they were in Toronto, but his stuff plus metrics, the underlying stuff, has not changed all that much since coming over to Los Angeles. So it's not as if they're doing a whole lot to fix his stuff, to make his fastball rotate a little bit more and get some movement. But they're pulling their magic and helping him, I guess, mix up his pitches, get good advanced scouting reports so that he can try to coax Twins hitters into swinging early in at-bats at pitches that look like they are hitter ideal, but then end up with some late movement on his cutter, becoming less than hitter ideal. I guess that is the difference from his start against us in Toronto and his start against us tonight. Or not his start, but his bulk outing against us. Because the Minnesota Twins could get nothing going. And it's not as if, in this case, it was just a whole lot of hard contact hit to the right people. No, the Twins, even though they only had a couple of whiffs in this game and made contact on almost every pitch that Lauer threw at them, only 5 of their balls in play were hit for hard contact. 14 against Eric Lauer were not. So we weren't even hitting him all that strongly. And I guess it's just a case of, over the weekend, the Twins BABIP'd, batting average on balls in play. They BABIP'd the Arizona Diamondbacks to death, especially in that 4th inning on Saturday. That was the precursor to the 10-run 5th, but also in the 7th inning, where a couple of balls just scooted through the infield. And then this is the baseball luck dragon coming back to bite us and regress us towards the mean on similar sorts of hits. But even so, you should be making stronger contact on a pitcher who is as piss poor as Eric Lauer. And the Twins were not able to do that. You don't even need to do it as badly as you did when he was pitching against you in April in Toronto. It didn't have to be like that. You just needed 3 runs to win this game. And getting 3 runs on Eric Lauer is something this Twins lineup should be able to do in its sleep, but just an off night for the bats. It seemed like they were just swinging a cut above or a cut below some of these pitches, and popping them up and putting them on the ground, and sometimes that just happens. So certainly something we can forgive Minnesota for, especially with how good their offense had been leading up to this game with the 50 runs on the 6-game road trip last week. I am not going to get worried, obviously, in a one-game sample that this offense is suddenly not figuring it out and is going to regress, but still frustrating nonetheless that they weren't able to do more damage against a bad pitcher, especially when their pitcher put up such a good fight. And let's talk about Zebby Matthews, because the question I have for Matthews, or about Matthews, is, has he taken the next step for the Minnesota Twins? This is now back-to-back starts where he's looked pretty good, and I know his first couple of starts this season were also pretty good, including his first, which was a scoreless one, but I think for me, this has been the most impressive start that Matthews has had at the major league level, because you have to take into context the team that he's going up against. And we already mentioned all the Hall of Famers in this Dodgers lineup. We already mentioned that this is a lineup that has won back-to-back World Series. And Zebby Matthews got in trouble against this lineup in the second, fourth, and even after the Freeman home run in the 6th inning as well. With, in all of those innings, the Dodgers getting 2 guys on, at least, in an opportunity to really blow the game open. And Zebby Matthews of late 2024 and Zebby Matthews throughout 2025, when he would get into those situations, I think more often than not would crumble under that stress. And the blow-up inning would happen a lot of the time. But tonight, against one of the best lineups, if not the best lineup in baseball, Zebby Matthews buckled down. And Derek Shelton said that it was just a great utilization of all of his pitches. The fastball still was a high usage. 42 of his 108 pitches were the four-seam fastball, but he worked 6 pitches at more than 10 pitches each in this game. And Derek Shelton credited that for Zebby Matthews' ability to get out of those jams in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th innings. And then in between, he had the 1, 2, 3 in the 3rd and the 5th. So I'm not sure if that's different than what Zebby Matthews was doing in 2025 and 2024. I'm not sure if Zebby Matthews at that time was just heavily relying on his fastball when he would get into situations where he had to pitch more out of the stretch with runners on base. And I think especially for young pitchers, they can over-rely on their fastball in those situations. I would have to go back and look at the numbers, and I haven't just yet, to see if Matthews was over-relying on his fastball in those situations, and that's why guys were able to kind of predict the pitches that were coming. But today, he had a good mix. He utilized all of his pitches, and most importantly, as Derek Shelton said, he executed all of those pitches. If he uses all 6 of those pitches and none of them are very effective, or only 2 of them are effective, then it's not going to do him much good. But I think we're finally starting to see the maturity, the growth, and the development for Zebby Matthews, especially in this start, and especially now in the last 2 starts. Even though he gets the loss in this game, I think this is an encouraging sign. Whereas about 2 weeks ago, I was questioning, well, this was if Mick Abel, Kendry Rojas, and Bailey Ober were all going to come up, whether or not Matthews would be better suited in the bullpen, where his stuff, which is already 97 miles per hour with the four-seamer, here at the starter level, would play up even more. I mean, I still think he would be a dominant reliever, but I'm starting to get more confidence that he can be a capable middle-of-the-rotation starter for this Twins teams now and in the future, and even on the competitive Twins teams, which this one still is, but the more competitive Twins teams entering the year that we hope to see get into the playoffs. He can start a Game 3 of a playoff, or a Game 4 of a divisional round playoff, depending on how everything lines up. He can be your number 4 starter if he continues to pitch like that. So a big tip of the cap to Zebby Matthews for this performance, because it seems like he has been able to take that next step. And we talked about it last week. That is a guy that looks like Brad Radke. That is a guy that looks like Kevin Slowey, that looks like Scott Baker, that looks like so many of the Twins pitchers that they had in the mid to late 2000s, or even in the late 90s in Radke's case. And that's starting to play here at this major league level. Obviously, he has better stuff than all of those guys, but the same sort of archetype. None of those guys threw 97, but they were all high control, fill up the zone, but also give up some hard contact. And he only gave up, much like Lauer, I believe the numbers were identical, 5 hard contact to 14 non-hard contact on balls in play, and he throws 108 pitches. So he gobbles up some innings, and the Minnesota Twins, despite losing this game, looked capable against a team that seems like a machine that we only see once a year, but every time we see them, they look so difficult to beat. And of course they were tonight, but Zebby Matthews held the Dodgers in place. Which brings us to further news about the starting rotation of your Minnesota Twins, and that is the news that Joe Ryan will miss his start on Tuesday because he is ill. And this ties into something we talked about after the Diamondbacks series finale, when we learned that Kendry Rojas was being activated off of the 15-day injured list. And we were discussing, well, is Kendry Rojas going to be a reliever only? Is he going to piggyback maybe with Mike Paredes? Is he going to be a starter right away? And that one was the one I thought would be the least likely, is that he would just enter the rotation. But because of this Joe Ryan illness, that is exactly what is going to happen for Kendry Rojas. He is going to be starting this game against the Los Angeles Dodgers as the Twins look to even up that series. And I don't know how long he's going to go in that game. I don't know how long of a leash he's going to be, if he's going to be more used as just kind of the opener or a long opener in what ends up being a bullpen game, because the Twins bullpen was not too worked up here in this game. I mean, Andrew Morris, Taylor Rogers, and Eric Orsi all threw, but none of them threw particularly strenuously, and were able to get the job done pretty efficiently. So maybe it is just a bullpen game with Rojas going 2, 3, 4 innings. Or maybe this is the start of Kendry Rojas, as I hope, taking over a spot at the top of the Twins rotation. And we've talked about how much I would like Mike Paredes in the bullpen, not because I think he's been ineffective as a starting pitcher so far. Quite the opposite there. He has been effective, despite, I think, being limited in terms of what pitches he has and how good those pitches are at the major league level. He's, I think, maximized his capabilities as a starting pitcher, but I think all that stuff plays better in the bullpen for Mike Paredes. So if Kendry Rojas gets the starting rotation, that pushes Paredes down, and again, just deepens everything. But maybe this is just a one-start thing, an emergency spot start because of Joe Ryan's illness. Twins haven't announced if Ryan will return in the finale or later on this week, maybe to start off the Colorado series on Friday. All that is to be determined, as is the length that Kendry Rojas goes in this upcoming start. So while Joe Ryan is a bit of bad news for your Minnesota Twins, the illness, the good news is that it is not a severe illness. And there is some good news with a pair of Twins players, or a pair of players within the Twins organization, that there's no structural damage right now in Mick Abel's elbow. You might remember Abel had almost completed his rehab assignment, got a couple of starts with the St. Paul Saints, then had a throwing session over the weekend that, if it had gone successfully, he probably would have started either the Sunday finale against the Diamondbacks or maybe even this game against the Dodgers for his return off of the injured list. But an issue flared up in that throwing session over the weekend, and it caused the Twins to shut him down and reevaluate. The good news there is that it was just some inflammation and some swelling. And that an MRI has revealed that there is no structural damage. Now, are we still going to hold our breath a little bit? Because sometimes that inflammation can just continue to put more and more stress and strain onto the UCL until finally it snaps. Sure, we can hold our breath, but as of right now, there is none of that structural damage. The Twins haven't announced when McAble is going to get back to throwing. Obviously, they're going to want the swelling and inflammation to die down just a little bit, but it looks like it's not going to be something that keeps him out long term and is very much so just a short-term setback. Also some good news, and this is not a player who has played a game in a Minnesota Twins uniform just yet, but is the highest ranked prospect within the Twins system. Walker Jenkins is going to be moving back up to St. Paul after being activated from the 7-day injured list. He had a rehab series, I believe, with Cedar Rapids last week after going with Fort Myers the week before that. He is going to be rejoining the St. Paul Saints when they begin their series in Louisville on Tuesday against the Louisville Bats. So it'll be nice to have him in. He is just, once again now, just one more step away from the majors, and we could see him soon. I think Alan Roden would be first in the pecking order, probably for Kyler Fedko. And then Walker Jenkins would be right after that, which, jumps the line in front of Matt Wallner, but I don't know if we need to necessarily see that much more from Matt Wallner as a Minnesota Twin, even though he is hitting lights out at AAA at this moment. But Walker Jenkins, activated at St. Paul, is just one step away from making his Major League debut. I expect it to be sometime this season. I expect it to maybe even be before the trade deadline. But Walker Jenkins, if he lives up to the potential that he has shown as a prospect right away, then this Twins lineup becomes one that you have to take a lot more seriously. A Twins lineup that already is second in the American League in runs scored this season, despite now only getting one against the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight. Which, as soon as we praise the Twins lineup, which was basically the theme of the show on Sunday into Monday after the Diamondbacks series finale, was just nonstop praise for the Arizona Diamondbacks, or for the Minnesota Twins lineup against the Arizona Diamondbacks and against the Texas Rangers, who had one of the best home ERAs in Major League Baseball history coming into that series. As soon as we do that, it ends up being the kiss of death, and the Twins scored just one run against one of the worst pitchers in Major League Baseball, and in terms of just stuff, the worst pitcher in Major League Baseball this season. Byron Buxton getting some good news. Not only did he hit his 25th home run, which now is tied for the American League lead, he has moved up the All-Star Game voting list. And he, if the voting closed today, would be one of your starting outfielders voted in this time. I know there was another time in one of his first two All-Star games where the original center fielder missed the game, whether it be for injury or another reason. Whatever it was, it allowed Byron Buxton to get the start in center field for the American League, but he was not voted into the game as a starter for that one. He is now in position to be voted in as the starter for this upcoming Midsummer Classic. He passes Cody Bellinger and has moved into third place. Now he's about 100,000 votes ahead of Bellinger and still like 600,000 behind Trout. And then I think Aaron Judge is in first place, but both Trout and Judge are injured right now. At least in Judge's case, I wouldn't expect that to cause a whole lot of votes to be siphoned away from Judge. But Byron Buxton catching the attention of the rest of Major League Baseball, or just some very fervent Twins fans who want to make sure that justice is seen and get him into the All-Star game as a starter. That is the position that he is in right now. Meanwhile, Ryan Jeffers, he moves from 4th to 5th among catchers, and that's okay because he's been injured for a while. I think that it is still a pretty nice showing by the league and by the fans, who seem to be, like, every single year with these votes getting more and more intelligent and more aware of what players are having success during a given season. That seems to be the case here, because I don't think Ryan Jeffers in 2025, if he was putting up similar numbers, would have gotten the same sort of love. But even with the injury, and he's not going to make the All-Star team, but he's still up there in the rankings as a top 5 among American League catchers, which I think if you just kind of go and do some arithmetic to find out the sort of impact that he's had in games, but being limited by games, or by being limited by injury, and the amount of total games that he has played, I think that impact overall would be about 5th among American League catchers. Now, Alejandro Kirk, who still hasn't played too many games this season, is still ahead of him, but I don't think that is too much of an injustice in either case. It's just nice to see Ryan Jeffers getting some recognition, although I think my prediction from the beginning of the season that the Twins would have 3 guys on the All-Star team might have been a bit overzealous. It might just be Byron Buxton alone. Well, the Minnesota Twins are going to continue their series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. They have a game against them tonight from Target Field. And like we said, it is going to be Kendry Rojas, an electric pitcher who I have loved, who I have compared to Johan Santana because his changeup is elite, also happens to be a lefty, and he throws a killer fastball and slider as well. He hasn't gone more than 5 innings in any of his starts, has been used kind of more as a bulk relief pitcher. We'll see if they give him a long leash in his first start off of the injured list. He is 1-0 with a 1.26 ERA, 14 strikeouts in 14 and a third innings pitched this season. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are just a pitching factory and continue to churn out ace after ace after ace, and they need it because every single free agent that they sign ends up missing like 2 months, or even any single pitcher that they have, any starting pitcher that they bring in at any point during the season has like this, it must be written in their blood magic contract with the devil that yes, we will give you every single pitcher that you bring up success, but every single pitcher that comes up among the Los Angeles Dodgers or is signed by the Los Angeles Dodgers has to miss like at least 2 months at some point. But Justin Robleski is another one of these starting pitchers that just comes out of nowhere. I'm not familiar with the Dodgers prospect, so maybe he was a top prospect, and that's one of the things that Andrew Friedman has always been good at, dating back to his time with Tampa Bay, is scouting, and now he has an unlimited budget to work with as well. It's just the perfect storm, and Justin Robleski is just another one of these guys churned out by the Los Angeles Dodgers machine. He is 8-2 with a 2.72 ERA, 50 strikeouts, in 79 and a third innings of work. So if you have not heard of Justin Robleski, you will hear of him tomorrow, and hopefully the Minnesota Twins bats can be a little bit better than we saw from them against Eric Lauer this evening. That game will start at 6:40 p.m. local time, and you can watch it, and we'll break it down afterwards. Hopefully the Twins are able to even up this series and steal one from the back-to-back world champions. All right, that is the last call on the Twins Talk for tonight. Thanks for pulling up a stool and joining in on the conversation at the Twinkie Town Tavern. I'm Josh Kolojeski, and we'll see you here after the next one. Go Twins!